When I'm walking down the street.
I do want to say to Doni and many of you in this room that over a very long career in this city, all of you have helped me and my colleagues tell the truth and to try to tell.
I may not look like you and you me, but
my head up.
I'm from South Carolina, so I just
What does this event mean to you, Miss Peggy Morris?
Oh, my heart.
Happy 20th anniversary.
My heart is about loving up on my sisters. Do you know what it feels like to have your sisters in the room? John.
And dare to be different and unique. I'm gonna be the best me I can be by letting His glory shine through. I am beautiful, I am blessed, but not just what you see in the flesh. I'm free from people, free from myself.
The doctor lived next door to the janitor, to the reverend, and the lawyer. We were together. Now we get so high and mighty that you create stress for your society because you don't like poor black folks either. That's a health problem. Get yourself together so I can stop being taking care of geriatric people and get back to pediatrics. I thank you, Doni, for all you've done. Let's keep doing it all and more.
Letting His glory shine through. Dare to be you, dare to be me, dare to be different and unique. I'm gonna be the best me I can be by letting His glory shine through. And I dare you, I dare you, I dare you to be you.
First name's Doni, last name's Glover. In it to win it for the long haul, baby. We made it through another week, y'all. It's the second week of the new year, 2024. I'm singing along. Good morning. Good morning, LinkedIn user. Like that song, do you? Yeah, it is pretty upbeat. Been a busy week on blackusa.news. Let's see. Earlier in the week, we spoke with Carl Snowden. We also spoke with Carl Stokes, the former council person. Now, you know we on the air. Bye-bye. We spoke with Dr. Eric Kelly down in North Carolina with the Black Business Olympics. Carl Stokes, you know, we got deep into his history with education here in the city of Baltimore. Remember, he and Kevin Parson and Dr. Anno Emery started the Bluford Drew Jemison School for Boys. Matter of fact, I was a speaker there a couple of times, and they gave me an award. Got a chance to meet Shantae Moore. That's who I got to meet. We also had on Ruquan Brown. He's a Harvard student out of DC, football player, and he had some pointed comments as it relates to Dr. Claudine Gay, who was the first Black president of Harvard University. She lasted 6 months before they ousted her. They said that part of the reason was she didn't have a strong enough stance against anti-Semitism. She didn't perform well, according to Harvard, when she had to speak before the U.S. Senate. And they accused her also of plagiarism. Harvard president. Imagine that. So today, our guest is Mr. Byron Deese, and Byron has a sentiment or two on what's happening in the world. Good morning, Byron Deese.
Good morning, brother Doni. How you feeling, man? Good morning.
He's an avid follower of this page. Thank you, Mr. Alexander Bob Page. I think it's the Bob Page from Baltimore County. We worked on a campaign together out there. I believe it was Mr. Barton Felder. So Byron, where you from?
Born and raised in Sanford, Florida.
Sanford?
Sanford, Florida.
Hold up, what happened in Sanford?
Well, there's a lot of great things that happen in Sanford.
No, man, what made national news? What made
Well,
national news? Sanford, that's where Trayvon Martin got killed.
Trayvon Martin, yeah, and it's interesting because I was in Baltimore at the time when it was going on. I called home to my mom. So where is this? Because I know all the neighborhoods that's going on with predominantly black. So where is this that this Trayvon Martin kid got killed? And it's like, oh, that was all woods when you were growing up. So you you don't really know where that area is. They developed that area, and folks have moved in from other locations, and he lived over there with his mom or with his dad, if it was, yeah. And so yeah, man, that took this little city by storm. The infamous Trayvon Martin situation.
It was because of that incident I swore I would never go to Florida.
Yeah.
Ever
you been
again.
back?
Ever. Huh?
Have you been back?
Not directly, but in the writing of my second book,
okay,
I had a reintroduction to Florida. And I came to learn that Florida is really a great place historically for black people. Take away the cocaine trade and all of that. Some marvelous things happen for black people. First of all, American history is full of lies. They will tell you that the first blacks who came to this country were in chains. And as I researched this book, one of the people I learned about was Juan Garrido. And Juan Garrido was a Spanish conquistador. He was not an enslaved person. He was not a black who was enslaved. He was a free man. Also learned about Little Stephen, also known as Little Esteban. And he traveled, he explored the west coast of Florida, all the way around the Gulf Coast, all the way around to Mexico. He was an explorer. I learned that in 1831, Spain sold Florida to the United States. So up until 1831, if you were enslaved and you escaped to Florida, you could get your freedom.
Right.
Now you had to promise to fight for the Spanish crown, and you had to convert to Catholicism. I learned about Negro Fort in Florida.
Negro Fort.
A place called Negro Fort. I learned about a black pirate who lived in Biscayne Bay. His name was Black Caesar.
Now, I learned that from you, actually. I didn't know about that. I learned that from you on one of your special.
Did you verify it? Did you look it up?
I did while you were talking. So this is brother talking about. Let me look this up. That's right. That's right. And the Black Seminoles I learned as a student at Tuskegee, which I grew up in Seminole County. Didn't know anything about it.
The Seminoles is a Spanish word, I believe, for cimarrones, and it means wild ones. So it wasn't a particular tribe. It was a collection of indigenous peoples who were essentially chased off the East Coast, and Florida became the final battleground. And those who didn't quit fighting are called the unconquered. And that's where this story begins, because there were some people fighting with the Seminoles, Black Indians, led by Chief John Horse, who they were all fighting the likes of Andrew Jackson. Andrew Jackson swore he was like Donald Trump. He was like a Donald Trump, but a soldier. And he said he's gonna put all of the blacks back in slavery, and he's gonna put the Indians on a reservation.
And you know, Donald Trump had a bust of Andrew Jackson in the Oval Office. So that's important to know, folks. A bust of Andrew Jackson in the Oval Office during his presidency.
Andrew Jackson was not our friend.
Not our friend. Not at all.
$20 bill was not our friend. So
give me mine in tens. I'll take I was like
the blacks who fought against them were led by Chief John Horse. And so he fought to a truce. The Seminoles didn't like him coming to a conclusion that, hey, we're not gonna win this. we're going to take this land out there in Oklahoma. That's what they offered Chief John Horse. But they were soldiers. I need you to understand, they were soldiers. They were gathered down.
Yeah.
They were fighting, and they fought to a truce. Now, the Seminoles, they went all the way to the Florida Everglades, and those that never quit, they are known as the unconquered.
That's real.
So we salute them. But that black man, Chief John Horse, black Indian, he led his people on the Trail of Tears to Oklahoma. Now, that's contrary because American storyline will tell you that they were slaves.
Yeah.
They were soldiers. Matter of fact, you had 3 Seminole Wars down there in Florida, correct? This was the second Seminole War.
Okay, okay.
Which in essence was the largest slave insurrection on American soil. See, it's all in the terminology. If you notice, like even when they're talking about Israel and Hamas, they'll say, well, they are terrorists.
Yep. Who's calling who?
You a terrorist.
That's right. That's right.
You killed 20,000 innocent. You are a damn terrorist. So we got to be mindful of the word game because it's been played on us as well as it's been played on anybody else. But let me let you say some things. I'm sure you got a lot. You got some fans over here too. Who is MD?
Oh, that's great. That's great. That's great. Well, but even that's my beautiful wife right there. So
okay, I better give you the mic because I don't want her to talk about it.
But you know, one point that you hit, especially going back to who are we identifying as terrorists, and to your earlier point about Dr. Gray, President Gray from Harvard, you know, all in whose side do you choose? And if you want to paint the picture in a way that is with the current narrative in America, if you don't fall in line with that, they will kick you out of office, especially if you're black. So, you know, I'm sitting there listening to the whole deal.
See, that ain't the truth. That doesn't preserve the truth when they threaten you. Well, if you don't say this, then we're gonna cut your money off. If you don't agree with us, then we're gonna discredit your name.
That's right.
And that's where we gotta link arms. Maybe it starts with a Taraji, maybe it starts with a Cat Williams, but we got to link arms.
Yeah.
And we got to understand that nobody can determine who our friends are but us.
Yeah. Doni, I gotta lead off real quick and just highlight the fact that one of the reasons why, and I've been following your program for probably a decade now, throughout we can go before Freddie Gray. But when you want to get the truth of what's going on the ground in Baltimore City, you gotta. What did Doni say? You know, what was Doni's perspective on this? And I think it's just so important. You know, it reminds me of when I was in college, and we had professors of, you know, the Black aesthetic, you know, professors of African American history, and they spoke truth, but in the same vein, in the same cadence that you do. You know, so I enjoy it. I enjoy being able to tap into your perspective. You know, I shared with you, you know, I moved to just a little quick backstory on me. So originally from Sanford, Florida, left Sanford to go to college, Tuskegee. And my first job out of college was in Baltimore, Maryland. And it was, I got there. I'd never been to Baltimore. The first day I stepped foot in Baltimore, I met my wife, which
what? Oh, I love a good love story.
I tell this story. I literally packed my bags, got in my car, drove from Tuskegee to Baltimore, and it's that night I got to Baltimore and met my wife at what's now, it used to be Dave and Buster's in Hanover, but now, well, I should say it used to be Jillian's in Hanover, which is now Dave and Buster's. And met her that day. And I'll tell you, and I came to Baltimore to work for SunTrust in private banking. And not only did I fall in love with her, but I fell in love with the city. And it was, you know.
How'd you fall in love with Baltimore?
Well, you know, it's interesting because Sanford is a small town. Tuskegee is even smaller. So when I got to Baltimore, it was like I was in a big city. Yeah, this was it. This is what we've seen on television. This was the real deal. And I'll tell you something else.
Wow.
You know, when you leave schools like historically Black colleges like Tuskegee, you know, the objective is you leave and then you go and make an impact within your network, within your people. You find a way to get to work. And like I said, I'd never been to Baltimore, but it didn't take long to realize that there was a lot of work to do. It didn't take long to realize. I remember the first day I asked the question. I was like, "Well, where do we go? You know, where do Black people go at night? Where do they hang out?" So, we're going to DC. Why are we going to DC? Look at this. Look at this. I know it's something going on here in Baltimore. Folks are going to DC to hang out. You know, so I was like, all right, this place is great for so many reasons. You know, one, we're 30 minutes away from the nation's capital. You know, 2.5 hours away from New York. Hour and a half away from Philly. You got the port city, you got mountains to your west, you got the beaches to your east. I mean, this is just an ideal location for anything, definitely if you're interested in economics and entrepreneurship. And so just from a geographic perspective, this was the land of milk and honey, if you will. So at least from my perspective, and I'll tell you from that moment on, as someone who was focused on building businesses, and I'm a wealth manager and working with families and learning the trade in a city like Baltimore. I thought I'd hit the jackpot.
You have,
and to this day,
you have hit the jackpot, and more of us need to have that mentality. It's just often bridled. It's often challenged by media, and that's why I do media, because it shapes perspective. When you look at what comes across on Fox television on a regular basis, it's a very anti-Baltimore sentiment.
Yeah.
And it's an anti-Black sentiment. It's not a lot of great things said about Black people in Baltimore, or there's a storyline that they prefer to paint, which is one of a helpless Black person or a Black person that's looking to white people to solve our problems, not one of an empowered Black people. And those of us who know our history, as I wrote about in my first book, Unapologetically Black, there's an interrelationship. There's a strong interrelationship between politics and economics. We didn't have a Marion Barry. Marion Barry was my man, 500 grand. He was all about empowerment, the empowerment first of Black people and then of white people and everybody else. He had no problem helping anybody become a millionaire, but he certainly, indubitably, unapologetically looked out for Black people. And that's why they tried to assassinate his character. He had his challenges like everybody else, but in that incident where that lady was trying to get him to smoke that pipe, he was trying to make love. And anybody that knows about addiction, let alone crack addiction, know you don't have to tell a crackhead to hit that pipe. You don't have to tell him twice.
That's right.
They had to tell him multiple times because he was trying to get some loving.
That's real. That's real.
So big ups to Marion Barry. But here in Baltimore, we had Perrin J. Mitchell. Perrin J. Mitchell helped start the federal 8A program, which has created a lot of Black millionaires over the years. We had Reginald F. Lewis come out of this town. He had a TLC Beatrice, of the first historic takeover by a Black man. He wrote the book, Why Should White Guys Have All the Fun? A reminder that we can do anything that we put our minds to. Maryland is also the home state to Matthew Alexander Henson. He is the first man to discover the North Pole. Then we had the likes of Little Willie Adams, who was the numbers king, and there wouldn't be a Maryland State Lottery. There you go. They called me Little Willie. That's right.
Call me Little Willie.
Yeah, that's right. And before him, there was a man named Tom Smith. Long before there was a Willie Adams, look him up in the Maryland archives. Tom Smith was a millionaire. He lived in the 6600 block of Ricestown Road. He was the largest Black hotelier in the United States. And he had believe it or not, he had prostitutes and his number one clients were white Democrats, which would be the equivalent of Republicans today. He was
That's right.
He was
To
a
this day, that's
supporter
right.
of what would be the Republican Party today.
Mm-hmm.
But he was the largest black hotelier in these United States. In terms of the faith community, Harvey Johnson. You think of Reverend Vernon Dobson. You think of the Goon Squad. We had a Goon Squad. Reverend Vernon Dobson, Marion Bascom, Gus Adair, and a slew of others. Pat Scott, Lalit, the Indian. And they came together, and if there were multiple blacks running an election, they were like, you're running and you're not running. That's what it is. And we're going to put our support behind this person. So it's, entrepreneurship, politics, civil rights. Behind New York, Baltimore had the second largest NAACP branch, thanks to the likes of people like Enola P. McMillan. We had giants here. And so that's still in our DNA. It's just that we've been under constant attack. And as I was explaining, I'll shut down after this and pass you the ball. If you're Latino, Hispanic in this country, people coming across the border every day, they are reinforcements. We don't have any reinforcements. We don't have blacks coming across the border. And when the Haitians did come across the border, they were met by men on horseback with whips. So we're outnumbered. And we don't have any help coming. So we've got to link arms, put down the petty stuff.
Yeah.
They put Willie Lynch on us, light skin, dark skin. I actually heard an otherwise educated man this week use the term good hair. Clearly he hadn't seen the Willie Lynch speech as espoused by the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan.
Yeah. How
everything is used to divide us. Male, female, young, old, light skin, dark skin, east side, west side, Baltimore, PG. There are people who say that Baltimore is not in the DMV. I could care less.
Yeah.
But don't come at me with that foolishness, because the last I checked, DC, Baltimore, Virginia, we all getting killed. They throwing the same thing at us, and that anybody that thinks that they have arrived, like they might want to say my ancestors came on a slave ship, but their ancestors came on a speedboat. It's like, we're in the same boat. Okay,
we're in the same.
I defer the rest of my time to you.
Well, I think it is so important when we think about, particularly from a Black economic perspective, and you highlighted the fact that there are loads of folks still trying to get here, but from a Black community perspective, who do we have coming? That folks aren't loading up to come. But I will say that, like Jesse Jackson said during his 1984 election, we do have a lot of rocks just laying around, and we have to identify how do we get the most out of who we do have here, and how do we work hard to kill the apathetic mindset around, well, the white man is doing this to us, the Black, or this certain class of folks isn't focused on us. We have to figure out a way to truly address Black economic advancement collectively. And that's something that is really at the height of my thoughts almost every day. I work with, and you highlighted one in particular that Perrin Mitchell brought to bear, which was to create the 8A program. I can tell you right now, 80% of my income come from managing 8A clients, helping. And for those who don't know, the 8A model is basically African Americans, if you will, who are getting access to government contracts. And, as I mentioned, the land of milk and honey, the closer you are to DC and all the various services that the government issues out, being able to tap into that procurement process, the more African Americans who know and understand a certain trade that we get in that pipeline, we get them access to those, to whatever the jobs. It doesn't even have to be rocket science. It could be normal day-to-day services that the government has a contract for. We can get those contracts. And why is that even important? Because when you can get contracts and you can get long-term contracts, now you have a pipeline to wealth creation. And so and not only that, when we think about the business owner, they have access to wealth creation by building those businesses, getting access to those contracts, but they also, more than likely, Black people hire other Black people. So we want to be in a situation where we really educate folks who are smart enough to do the work. They may not have had the history, if you will, of family members who became entrepreneurs.
I've watched us bust our ass for somebody else.
That's right.
Quite often somebody white. We're loyal to a core. I get it. You mean to tell me, though, we can't do that for ourselves?
Say it this way. We are creatures of our own experiences and what's been taught and what's been passed down. So, especially for those who are Generation X and above, what was taught is you go out, you go to school, you get a good job, you get a retirement, and you do that until you die. And that's the
miseducation of the Negro. I remember my grandma, God rest her soul. That's the one thing she and I differed on. She like, Donnie boy, go over there to Spurs Point.
Yeah.
Get yourself a blue collar job and retire.
Get a pension.
That was nowhere in my purview. It was not. In Miseducation of the Negro by Dr. Carter G. Woodson, he said, we're the only people that send our children to school to come out and work for somebody else. See, there was a time, you showed that book about Willie Adams. There was a time when we had everything we needed right here in the community. Doctors, lawyers, dentists, engineers, school teachers, nurses. We had all of it right here in the community. And then very few people will argue integration crippled us because we wanted to move to a different neighborhood. We wanted better for our children. I got you. So some of our best and brightest moved to Randallstown, Woodlawn, Owens Mills, or even further, York, Pennsylvania, Harford County, Prince George's County. They moved from DC to Prince George's County. Now they're moving to Charles County. And that's fine. That's all good and dandy. But what happened to what you had?
Yeah.
What did you do with grandma's house? New York City, they were selling brownstones at a very affordable rate back in the 80s.
Yeah.
But we wanted to move to Long Island. We wanted to move to Strong Island. You know what I'm saying? We tired of living here in the city. We don't want to live in Brooklyn no more. We don't want to live in Harlem. We want to go to Strong Island.
Yeah.
Now white people got what's the food place? What's the name of the market?
Where? In Baltimore?
No. The market, the white market. It moved to Harlem and it Whole Foods.
Whole Foods
in Harlem. You got white girls jogging up 125th Street, and it ain't the Harlem. You got over in DC, you got white people walking their dogs on Howard University campuses taking a dump.
Sacred ground.
14th and U ain't 14th and U no more.
It ain't 14th. At all.
But part of it is because we fell for the okie doke. And if you want to keep that beautiful woman on your arm, you better go ahead out there, boy, get that house, get that mortgage.
Yeah.
Because she ain't staying otherwise. Meanwhile, I live in Sandtown. There's a white family just moved in down the street.
Okay. It's coming.
The white girl moving up into Sandtown.
It's coming.
Which used to be 99% black. It ain't 99% black no more.
5-10 years, that's a different ball game.
Now it also comes with white addicts.
And
they take
the white addicts buying property?
No, they squatting and taking over properties that way.
Exactly. That's my thought. Yeah.
But they're finding value in what we have discarded.
Yeah.
Just like the Latinos are working jobs that we used to work but refuse to work now. We don't even want to work in many cases.
Yeah.
Got a lot of comments over here.
Yeah, but I'll tell you this, and this kind of goes back to your point around what integration did. And the way I see it,
It gave us a false sense of security.
And it created a huge divide within the Black community.
Yeah, because we don't like poor Black people now.
That's the point. That's the point. And the question is why? Who taught us that, right? Who said you shouldn't like poor Black people?
White people.
You shouldn't like exactly.
White people. So, the white media.
Yeah, that's right.
And those Black people who are bought into the white American dream.
Yeah. Let me tell you, and I'm glad you said it that way, the white American dream. Yeah, because have you been to Dovecote, the coffee house over in Reservoir Hill?
No, I think I know where it is though. It's on
I think it's
Linden and Whitelock.
The Whitelock, yeah. And I gotta tell you, I never forget. I was in between meetings. I said, let me go over and get some coffee. And Nick Mosby said, man, you got to go to Dovecote. So I go over there, and I couldn't. This goes back to the white American dream that made my brain that was infused in my mind. But when I walked in the room and saw it was all Black people working, I met the owner that day, and they were, coffee smelled great, scones being, transacted. They had people sitting down, writing down stuff like they were doing some business, and I'm sitting there like, wow, this is. But they didn't have the ties, and they didn't look like they had just come from some, white establishment, if you will. This was a Black economic activity happening right here in a predominantly Black middle class community at that point, because that community has definitely, advanced over the past 20 years, if you will. And I walked out of there saying, this is what it could look like. It doesn't have to be a carbon copy of what's going on in Harbor East. Black economics can flow in the vein that it looks like from the person who chooses to become that entrepreneur. It doesn't have to be a carbon copy of Starbucks. It can look and sound like, and the music that's playing could be very, cultural, if you will. That makes a lot of sense to the people who live there. And I walked out of there straight up inspired. 100% to say that this is real, but we have to understand, what does a Black American dream look like? It's one thing that we know what's been told and taught to us as what the American dream, the white American, but what does the Black American dream look like? And I walked out of it saying, this is an example of that, because you can create economic flow regardless of, in whatever way your mind can create it. And so it's possible.
Did you ever read The Narrative of the Life of Frederick Douglass?
Oh, yes, sir.
There's a point in that book where he was sent to a quote unquote nigger breaker. His name was Mr. Covey, Covey.
In Baltimore.
Was it? I didn't know
Baltimore.
that part. I don't recall that part. But he was sent there because they wanted to break Frederick Douglass's spirit. And this so-called nigger breaker had the testicular fortitude, so some thought, to break down a Frederick Douglass.
Yeah.
I love me some Frederick Douglass. He wrote this quote once. He says, when we find a man who has ascended heights beyond ourselves, who has a broader range of vision, and we a sky with more stars in it than we have in ours, we may know that he has worked harder, better, more wiser than we. He was awake while we slept. He was busy while we were idle. He was wisely improving his talents while we were wasting ours. He went from an enslaved person to ambassador to Haiti, advisor to the president. He spoke up for Black people to be able to fight in the Civil War. Well, anyway, he sent them to Mr. Covey, and long story short, if anybody got their hind parts stomped and smashed, if there was anyone who got broke,
that's right,
it was Mr. Covey.
It was Mr. Covey.
Because Frederick Douglass was a grown man. just like Harriet Tubman.
Mm-hmm.
And that's in our DNA.
That's right.
Those people are in our DNA, just like Matthew Henson, the first man to discover the North Pole. They didn't want to give him credit because that's how racist America does. They wanted to give credit to Admiral Robert Peary.
That's right.
But there were people like Dr. Herbert Frisbee who ensured that Matthew Henson from Calvert County, Maryland, got credit for discovering the North Pole. And so those of us who get in position and we forget our obligation to hold the door open for the next person, like this show is on the metaverse with Dr. Tyrone Taborn.
Love it.
This man has been, he's created this safe space in the metaverse. So this show is not only available on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, and Twitter, but also in the metaverse. He has been working for 4 decades plus to close the digital divide so that we're not on the periphery of development, but we are in the heartbeat. We're in the core of development. And people have invested tens of thousands of dollars in this platform right here. And that's why we shared. We'd love you to get a show on here, Byron, if your wife will.
I think she'll be all for it, man. I listen, and I'm glad you said closing the digital divide. I was telling one of my buddies the other day. I think I'm 40. I'll be 45 next month. I'm pretty sure I want to commit.
40 going on 45.
I said I'll be 45 next month.
You're 44 now.
44, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And I'm pretty sure I want to devote the next 30, 40 years to closing the Black class aspect, to close that divide.
Dr. Zolikoff says at the beginning of the show that we don't like poor Black people.
Yeah, we got to get past it because we know where that comes from, right?
Willie Lynch.
We know it. That's exactly right. And at the end of the day, we can't, if we're going to have a Black agenda, and I like to look at it from a Black economic agenda, which has its own branches that infuse into the socioeconomics, the issues. If we're not actively talking about addressing closing that poverty gap, and how do you do that in a city like Baltimore? And if you can do it in Baltimore, you can do it in any post-industrial city in the country.
We allow the smallest of things to divide us instead of bringing us together.
That's right.
I love Randallstown. I love I'm about to say Hoodlawn, Vandalstown, and Owen, my arm and my leg mill. I love Randallstown, Woodlawn, Owens Mills. I love these places. I go to Wegmans all the time, and all my family lives out there. But I'm a city resident. I go out there because we don't have many food options here in the city of Baltimore. But I live here in the city, and yeah, sometimes they pop it on. Sometimes you're laying back, you're watching television, and some fool just wants to go ham shooting. Yeah. And that's why I don't believe that the murders have gone down this year.
I heard you say that.
The police have stayed in their cars. You're 700 officers short. So unless you, the Wizard of Oz, and you waving some magic wand, crime has gone up. Carjackings, it's more violent than ever before. And this goes back to Freddie Gray, where the police took a knee because Marilyn Mosby held them accountable. So the cops have taken a knee for the past 8 years. I don't see how crime goes down. Your cops taking a knee, they staying in their car, you 700 officers short.
That's real. It may just be these brothers can't shoot. I mean, if that's the case, because if they're still shooting and the murders are down, that's the only other thing I can think. If shootings have gone up, because I was reading the numbers recently. It looks like the actual number of shootings are going up, but the number of actual murders are down. I was like, well, wow. Well, these brothers need to put the guns down.
That starts with the coroner, and we know that it starts with the coroner, and we know that the coroner in Baltimore has had some stints of corruption. And I go back to the case of Robert Lee Clay, famous businessman, contractor, politico, who they say committed suicide. Only thing is, he was right-handed, and the bullet went in the left side of his head. Same coroner office. Same coroner office. Or you look at the Baltimore City Board of Elections. Who can't count? I remember the year 2016, there were 1,800 voting irregularities in Baltimore City compared to 200 in all of the 23 other jurisdictions combined. But yet, Armstead Jones still has a job. Could you make 1,800 mistakes on your job?
No, I wouldn't have clients if that's the case. It'll be a wrap for me.
It'd be a wrap. But that's the corruption that we live in this place they call mob town. Yeah. And black people are part of the corruption. Look at Baltimore City Public Schools. These students get what, $23,000 per pupil? One of the largest expenditures in the world. And you're producing an inferior product? No Fortune 500 company wants to come to a city where the children can't read. Why isn't there Saturday school? There should be Saturday school mandatory for everybody until you get this school system back on track. And the school superintendent, the CEO, Santa Lisa, how in the world does she have a job? Still paying her $300,000? Giving her awards? It's outrageous.
But I will tell you this though, and you hit a point, but I think there's definitely an employer who's looking for places like Baltimore to come. And especially when you look at the workforce aspect of it. You have Baltimore City Community College with a whole workforce development program that's designed to attract corporations to places like Sandtown to be able to say, okay, well, we can create a manufacturing plant like there's a company in Baltimore called Marlin Steel. Marlin Steel makes, forks, knives, metal racks, things like that. And they hire predominantly black folks to do that work. There are a host of companies like that who are scattered all throughout the Midwest who are looking for what we've called the ghettos and land that or abandoned buildings. Well, let's find ways to put that to use. Let's attract employers who are looking to hire at mass, partner with, we have the tools right here, partner with schools who can do the research and development to get folks ready to go to work for jobs like this and put them to work, which will now increase the tax base because now these folks have jobs. So there is a recipe, but what the apathy comes in when millions of dollars continue to come through forms of real estate development, and it's all along the waterline. And you can go through certain parts of Baltimore and say, wow, this is beautiful. But when can those dollars be flooded into Sandtown, Winchester, Upton, throughout?
Because we have too many fake leaders who are only interested in capitalizing, exploiting, pimping the black community. This young lady right here, Christina Flowers, she works with the homeless population, and she's been on a bit of a roll this morning on this in the comments section. So let me tell you, before starting this network here in December 2020, I was at Radio 1. I was there for 21 years, had the longest running customized show in the United States, 21 years. And then near the end, Radio 1 got a little funky with me. And I thank God that they got funky, because I wouldn't have started this beautiful network if it weren't for them. So I thank you. From the bottom of my heart, I thank them.
Yeah.
But she's raising a question that I've raised to myself. I'll be damned if I'm going to pay you, what's that, $200 a week, $800 a month. I'm going to pay you $800 a month. See, I had sponsors at first. They covered all of that. But all of a sudden, something went haywire, and I don't want to get into any particulars. Yeah. But I can count. And even though I went to Poly, you don't have to go to Poly to be able to count $800 a month. I mean, $800 a month, that's damn near a mortgage.
That's real.
Might not be a big old house, but
yeah,
add a couple more hundred to it, 1,000, that's a mortgage. I'm not paying you a mortgage and not get anything, because at the end of the day, you pay that $200 a week and you just got an hour on the radio. $800, $1,000 a month, and I got nothing to show for it but a CD of a show. And you add that 800 or 1,000 times 12, that's 12,000 in a year. Well, Byron, that sounds like some damn equity to me.
Yeah, some investment money. Yeah, we could do something with 12,000.
Well, here's my investment. As a matter of fact,
there you go.
We've taken what we've saved and reinvested, and we have a website coming shortly that will combine blackusa.news with Be More News and bring them all under one roof so that we can keep driving this ship effectively. But it's all about investing right back in your product. I'm not paying somebody that kind of money. And we're able, thanks to people like Michael Haney, Robert DeShields, Billy Murphy, we're able to afford other people the opportunity to do a show. So we have had hosts from Oakland, from San Francisco, from Miami, from Atlanta, from New Orleans, all over the country, New York. So,
well, Doni, I'll tell you, you've tapped into something though so something that I share with my clients called the growth quadrant. And the growth quadrant, if you just think about your assets in and of themselves, so for some people, their assets are savings, their house. Some people have 401ks. Some people have businesses like yours. If you were to draw a circle and just cut it into fours and you create these 4 different quadrants, look at those as asset classes. And if the past several years, you've just, I'm contributing to my 401k, I'm saving more money in my bank account, and I have a business, but I'm just marginally growing the business. If I tell people about it a little bit, I challenge my clients to create what's called a growth quadrant. And that growth quadrant is an asset class that you are focused on creating a 25% rate of return or more. 25% rate of return or more. And usually when you're talking about that type of growth rate, now you're talking about what you're doing is business ownership, or whether it be real estate income, and being able to effectively market that part of your portfolio to make sure that you're at least pursuing a double-digit return. And now for folks who are building businesses and strategically planning to sell those businesses, then now they're talking about, multiples that they can get on that investment, because, you could start the business from scratch with in some cases, not even any dollars, grow it, like we talked about what Reginald Lewis did with the 3 different times, grow it, and then sell it for a higher multiple because somebody bought that business and it was already fully staffed, had contracts, had all the great stuff. They don't need to do anything, but just let it continue to go. They don't have to put extra dollars and try to tweak it to make it work. So I challenge everybody who either, let's just say if you're not an entrepreneur, everybody who's listening to my voice knows and understands something. That's something that you know and understand. And if you can incorporate what you know and understand, then now you can build something. You can enter that growth quadrant. It doesn't have to take up all of your time. It didn't have to, so I work full time. Okay, well, you work 9 to 5, but what about 5 to 9? What are you doing between that period of time just to increase the value of your overall portfolio? And we talk about, portfolios, what are we talking about? And we're not trying to get rocket science here. We're just talking about take what you have and try to grow it, and grow it based on the things that you already know and understand. So at least go into it with that kind of a mindset, because if you don't, then you find every year it seems like there's not much growth happening because you're doing the same thing over and over and over again. So there's an opportunity for us to tap into that growth quadrant from an economic perspective. And I think from a Black economic perspective, I go back to what I was saying earlier. I see the growth opportunity is if you get in your car right now, ride from Hilton to Greenmount on North Avenue and just drive and go, I would say between, 10 and 10 a.m. and 3 o'clock p.m. and just ride down and see how many people between the ages of 18 and 50 that you see just around, whatever, doing what. It doesn't seem like they're going anywhere in particular, just around. My question is, how do we get the most out of them? How do we invest in them? How do we get whatever the issue is? Because it's clear that there hadn't been a clear plan to say, how do we get the most out of the demographic that's not actively in the workforce? So how do we do that? And we have programs ready to go right now. We just have to usher them into it. I serve as the chair of the Baltimore City Community College Foundation. Workforce development program at BCCC is real. That program is creating a pipeline of nurses back into the hospitals. It's creating a pipeline.
Byron.
Yeah.
We have now a generation of entitled Black people.
Understood.
The longer we have stay in America, the more Americanized we become.
Yeah.
In 1979, we had hostages in Iran. They sent this helicopter over there to get them. The helicopter went down. They got taken. More hostages got taken. And I remember the Iranians saying to the Black hostages, "Yo, we understand your struggle. We are gonna let you go." And I remember the Black patriots. No, we're with America. We're with America.
Yeah.
It's like my brother. I understand your struggle.
I understand. That's right.
I understand your struggle. We are gonna let you go free. No, I'm with the Americans. I'm with the Americans. What you talking about, man?
Yeah.
Kind of like that Patty Hearst syndrome. Kind of like that verse that says, "Slaves, be loyal to your master." Some of us have been abused so long. That thing is so deep into the DNA, the pedagogy of the oppressed, wrote Paulo Freire.
That's real.
Chinua Achebe talked about things fall apart. Carter G. Woodson wrote about the miseducation of the Negro.
Yeah.
We've come to believe that the white man's ice is colder when all ice freezes at 32 degrees Fahrenheit. Black, white, yellow, green, ice
2 degrees Celsius.
32 degrees. Ice is ice.
That's right.
Marcus Garvey says a man that doesn't believe in himself has lost twice. We've become battered. We like the battered wife syndrome, and we're loyal to a Democratic Party that treats us like crap. Not a plug for the Republicans. It's just saying, dude, you're supposed to be my ace. This is not how you treat your ace. You don't treat your ace like a side piece.
Well, that's what we are. And so, but I'll tell you this though, and here's the truth when it comes to a Black agenda, if you will, and the politics associated with that.
We're afraid to say Black in an unapologetic fashion. We're like,
that's real.
We're Black. No, we're Black.
Yeah.
Unapologetically. Big ups to my man, Ateem Lee, Controversy TV. Clothing brand, including Be More Apparel, being more optimistic, righteously empowered.
I love that, brother. Ateem Lee. Yes, sir. But let me tell you, here's the point. From a Black agenda perspective, which is something that we don't holistically have. But you think about the fact that it took just earlier this week, Biden was in South Carolina trying to reconnect with the Black vote. And at the end of the day, the Black Democratic Party cannot move forward without Black people. That's number one. And I say we flood the Republican Party. That's what I say. I say we tell both of them, you can't get our vote unless you meet our demands. Neither one of you can get our vote unless you meet our demands. Now, the truth of that is, it would definitely hurt the Democratic Party because the Democratic Party needs the black vote.
But at the same time, vote, but then once they get the black vote, they get tepid, they get lukewarm when it comes to what black people need.
But see, that's the point. So there has to be a solid agenda.
I'm not your side piece.
I'm not your side piece. That's right. But the thing is, what we've done what the Democratic Party has done over the past 40 years is put black people in charge to lead a Democratic agenda. It's a black face to lead a Democratic agenda. But what we have to do is send that black person. If we would have sent Obama with an agenda, with a black agenda to lead, or whoever the case is.
At this juncture, I ain't gonna put so much pressure on him. He probably did the best he knew how. Remember Jackie Robinson? When Jackie Robinson went into the majors, why did they pick Jackie? Because they knew that when Jackie was out there in the outfield and those racists start throwing rocks and fruit and everything at him, that he wasn't going to lose his cool.
That's real. And listen.
But the next black president, we're going to need somebody with some James Evans in him, with some Marion Barry in him, with some Reginald F. Lewis in him, because we need economic development. They brought all of this $641 million in American Rescue Recovery money to Baltimore. And I mean, $640 million. I'm going to start me some businesses.
And that's outside of the budget.
I'm going to start me some businesses straight across North Avenue.
What's the economic plan for $640 million? Federal dollars is not coming back. So what's the economic plan for that?
It takes a business person's mentality.
Understood.
America is business.
That's exactly right.
And the business can't be all the way down there in Port Covington, all the way away from the black community. It's got to be up here on North Avenue in the 2100 block where Rashid Aziz built the EMOD Center.
Yeah, we need an uptown economic plan, and that's the deal.
Yeah, because they put all that money in the harbor, and then the harbor's dead.
Yeah, so but again, we have to create a black agenda for any elected. Listen, I have extremely high hopes for our governor, but if he didn't have a black agenda,
if you don't have a business plan, you have nothing. Look at what Dr. Taborn wrote right here. 80% of blacks don't work for blacks. 60% of Asians work for other Asians.
That's real. But to his point, of the blacks who are employers, they predominantly hire black people.
So, you're damn right.
So we have to increase the number of black employers. Increase the number of black employers. Increase the number of black professionals who can get those jobs. But at the same time, because we can't leave the other side dead, at the same time, we have to increase the number of local black economics, meaning local businesses that their target market is within the community and online. But we have to be able to tap into that as part of the black economic agenda.
And we got to be mindful, as Prisoner's Perspective wrote, the impact of mass incarceration. America represents 5% of the world's population, yet we have 25% of the world's inmates. 25% of the people, 25% of the world's inmates, 25% of the world. 1 in 4 of the world's inmates lives here in America. 40% black men, black women, fastest growing demographic. So when a cat isn't getting an education, when a cat isn't looking forward to college, I mean, one of the most beautiful things that you and I can ask a young black man is, what college are you going to? And he's like, I'm only 13. And what's your point?
Where you going?
Yeah, but once we pour that seed into them, you see that brain clicking. Just like Dr. Tyrone Taborn always gets our brain clicking. He says he's watching the show from STEM City, USA. Let me tell you.
I love it.
In February, the 15th, the 16th, and the 17th, we got the STEM, we have the BEYA coming, Black Engineer of the Year Awards. admirals, generals, CEOs, Boeing, all of these companies right here in downtown Baltimore. This is his first time back, if I'm not mistaken, like 13 years. Because Baltimore did not embrace it. They didn't embrace this mega conference. And now we got the metaverse. So the 15th, the 16th, the 17th, we got a reception on the 16th of January. Tuesday, down at the Reginald Lewis Museum. Maybe you'll come through. We got to get out here. Any final thoughts, Byron? You got to come back. Are you coming back next Friday? I mean, we need to stand in.
Let's do it, man. Count me in.
Really.
Let's go. Count me in. This is great. I appreciate you. Go to our website, dreammakersnetwork.org. Sign up with free membership. We host these types of events ongoing. Have these types of conversations on Black and advancement of Black economics. But I appreciate your time. This is great, man. It's a blessing for me.
Plug that website again.
Dreammakersnetwork.org. Dreammakersnetwork.org. Sign up, schedule consultation. Happy to have an opportunity to speak with you and learn more about what you're doing to advance your own personal portfolio. So we look forward to having that conversation.
Okay. All right, Byron. Up to day, down tomorrow. Do your day and everything will follow. Nothing to it but to do it. I got to do it, regardless of how I feel. I am somebody. I am my brother's keeper. Good morning, world.